This table saw is optimal choice for serious home use. Unlike cast iron saws, it's movable by a single person and takes much less space while still providing sufficient working surface. Unlike cheaper counterparts, it has good table and allows for relatively precise cuts. Now let's get into the details. Starting from the top, we have a cast aluminum table that is reasonably flat. The table size is perfect, not too big or too small. There are convenient retractable supports on the back for cutting long pieces. They are also perfect for storing the vacuum handle. I don't like the gray table powder coating. It rubs off the table and onto your part after some time. It's mostly a problem when I'm sanding something. The side that was laying on the table is always with gray spots. It's not too bad though. The coating is non-conductive but also not heat resistant. Soap and water neither damage nor clean it. It dissolves in acetone and basically can't be cleaned. This is why it usually looks beat up on the pictures. Some folks are rubbing the table with Zerberglide paste, but I didn't try that. Sides of the table offer convenient 90-degree surface when the table is used for assembly and clamping. This can be said about the front and back sides, which have a lot of features and elements making clamping on them less ideal. The right-hand side extension is sturdy and allows for a very convenient router table setup. I basically never close it. It's not perfectly level, the sag on the far end is a few millimeters, but that has no effect on the cut. The rulers on the top only work if the extension is closed, which is never the case for me. I always measure from the blade directly, so this is not a problem. The sled on the left side is flimsy and wobbly, but is still useful. The sled right side is 0.8 mm above the table, which easily ruins the 90-degree cut angle on a thick narrow part if you're not careful. It's still convenient for quick cuts that don't need high precision. Some people replace it with a flat non-movable insert, but I wouldn't do that. The sled has a matching miter fence that is similarly flimsy but usable. Unless 0.1 degree of precision is required for the angle, it's a convenient tool that doesn't take away the usable blade height, unlike other sleds. The table has a deep slot and the sled has a shallow slot, allowing to make DIY sled riding in one or both of those slots. Since the built-in sled is wobbly, building sleds using just the right slot seems optimal. The fence system on this table is good. Of course, it's no match for cast iron table precision fences and requires some getting used to. Don't move it by the handle. This way the part will either get stuck or come out with a taper. My trick is to do the final adjustment with light taps in the right spot and gently lock it in place. You can find this spot very quickly by comparing the fence line with the slot line as you move it. Couple this technique with a caliper and it's not hard to get 0.1 mm precision. Anything beyond that is a question of how hard you squeeze the caliper. The stock insert plate is far from perfect. If narrow pieces are cut, stuff can fall into or get stuck between the blade. The stock plate is still necessary for cuts with odd angles. Plate also doesn't matter when a DIY sled is used on top of it. For all other cases, a zero clearance insert plate is highly recommended to minimize the tear out. It's not very hard to make using the default insert plate as a template. There's also one available on Amazon. The stock blade leaves a very rough finish. I tried an expensive Bosch blade, but instead recommend getting a Falkenwald 80 teeth multi-material blade that leaves a flat bottom. Having flat slot surface is a very convenient feature that's easy to overlook when buying a blade. The riving knife is another important safety feature. It's heavily greased. Don't wipe that transparent grease away like I did. It allows the knife to travel up and down by pushing or pulling without loosening any screws. Riving knife holds the blade safety cover that doubles for dust extraction. For a short period of time I had the Bosch dust extraction kit, consisting from the splitter and the second hose, but it wasn't worth it. Today I use none of that. By default, the saw drops significant amount of sawdust underneath itself. You see how I covered the space around the blade to fix this. I'll link to a separate video in the description with more details. On-off switch works perfectly. The motor is powerful enough for any cut that I tried. The only way I know to make it slow down is to use a pine beam with tar. It will still cut through though. The motor housing with the blade can be precisely adjusted if needed by loosening the bolts under the table, but I didn't have the reason to do that. The blade adjustment levers are well made and are working as intended. It's easy to do fine adjustment of the end stops for 0 and 45. My blade is always on 0, because 45 can usually be cut without moving the blade, and by moving the part instead when the part is not very big. I tried cutting 45 on the edge for a long panel and it was a fail. The base of the saw is very sturdy and well made. It has mounts for everything, which is nice. The default push stick is unusable and the blade storage is inconvenient, but that's no big deal. The dust extraction port on the back is for a 35mm vacuum tube, which fits my car hair perfectly. Also on the back of the saw is this aluminum extrusion with bolts that I never needed, which is supposed to help with cutting thin sheets. Thinnest stuff I have is 2mm acrylic, and it wasn't needed there. I had no reason to get inside the saw since I installed the sawdust protection, and until this video got underway. Looking there now, all is well. Plastic gears will probably break first, but for now they look good. Cleaned up the dust and added some lubricant. The saw is ideal for cutting wood, various types of panels, plastics and foam. Cutting thick rubber didn't go that well due to the rubber overheating. Cutting aluminum is not a problem. I also did about 10 cuts in steel with the stock blade, but it was a very unpleasant experience, with steel chips flying everywhere like little bullets. So, overall, this is a good table saw. I can definitely recommend it. That's all for today. Thanks for watching and see you next time.